Hi, this is Argon, or DoctorArgon, or whatever bizarre username I'm using now from the Colorado Netrunner community. And I am joined here by my good friend zhae, who just came in third at the Boulder District Championships this past weekend with a very interesting odd list. And we're going to talk about it today.
Woo, let's go!
Uh-huh. Yeah, this kind of deck tech interview type thing is something a little bit new that we're doing, trying to, showcase some of the more interesting decks that come out of the Colorado Netrunner community, especially when they do well.
Yeah,
And I would consider making Top Cut of the districts to be doing well, so here we are.
that's okay. You should definitely talk to the champion though, because his decks were sick. But
Yes.
I'm happy to be interviewed. See what happens.
All right. Yep. So I had a list of questions that I came up with based on the deck list, which did get published at some point in time over the last couple of days. And obviously, the link to it will be included in the video description. And yeah, so we're just going to go ahead and get started. So, first question. Besides the fact that it's clearly the best corp in Standard, what made you interested in building an OB deck in this meta? How much did the tools in Vantage Point influence this decision?
So, I mean, the tools definitely helped. It's hard not to look at it and think that Event Horizon's like pretty good, at least in OB. It's quite good. Um, I think more than that though, I back when I started playing, I forget what deck it was or who made the deck, but I saw an oblist, and kind of the premise of the write up was that the player just wanted agency. They wanted to feel like they could control their deck and have agency in any board state, and that's something that OB offers better than most other corps. So coming into the district championships, I decided that's something I wanted. It's kind of that same sense of like just agency and ability to like have a little more say over my draw order by aggressively cheating. The draw order, not
Oh,
obviously the rules, but
no, I was going to say that, look, OB, I have heard it said that when you play OB, it doesn't feel like you're playing Netrunner. So that's cheating, right? If that everyone's showing up to play one game and you're showing up to play paintball chess.
what the fuck is paintball chess?
I don't know, chess boxing. I if
With
it,
paintball?
That's the actual thing.
I'm into it. I'm into paintball chess. No, but
Okay,
that's definitely like that's what it was. It's like just because I've been so busy and I haven't had time to iron out a lot of my like weirder corp ideas. So I found an obelisk I was happy with that kind of sparked joy for me and gave me the control I wanted, and that was good enough for districts.
I mean it makes sense. You do want to be playing a deck that you enjoy playing, so that you can enjoy playing Netrunner with it.
Yeah.
Mhm. So, what would you say are the key cards in the deck besides the ID?
Um. So besides the ID, I did call it VERTIGOB because it's a Vertigo deck. First ever Vertigo deck. It's a joke. Um. But I don't know. There's kind of a fork in the road with ob decks between Tranquility Home Grid and Zato City Grid. They do vastly different things, and they make really define the style of deck you're playing. So I decided I wanted to do the Zato deck with Vertigo. Um, that's kind of the key kind of pyramid of cards, I guess, is Zato City Grid, Vertigo, and then obviously Ob does a lot of heavy lifting.
Hmm. So I do want to ask, what would you say for those of us in the back? What makes the Zato City Grid Ob different from the Tranquility Home Grid Ob as
Yeah.
as a consequence of the different cards?
So with Tranquility Home Grid, you are just generating value. Um, the strength of Tranquility Home Grid in Ob is that you can get an install on both players' turns. So you're triggering Tranquility, ideally, twice per your turn, essentially. Which
Hmm.
can be a massive amount of money, or draw. It's just a huge value piece. Zato does not have that same direct like gain 2 credits, but it does give you the ability to turn flimsy gear check ices into end the runs. So you sacrifice some of the immediate kind of concrete credit value that you get from Trank in exchange for this weird, evil, and intimidating remote server value that just becomes very, very difficult to engage with if you don't like pinhole the Zato or something. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
that makes sense. I would say that it does. Yeah, it so because of the additional credits or possibly draw, the Tranquility Home Grid probably lends itself to a more offensive play style or aggressive play style where you're trying to generate as much value as possible and go a bit quicker, whereas the Zato City Grid is more defensive.
Yes. Like if you look at I know there have been a couple deck lists of the week that have been ob lists. I think the yeah, when the going is smooth and good, Cobra Bubbles, and then Push 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 by Chunky Seal. Both of these are very fast, pure. I won't say pure, but very rushy ob decks that rely on Tranquility to give them a lot of this forward momentum.
Hmm. And you're trying to, because you're trying to exert as much control over over the game state as possible. The Zato City Grid was the direction you found was where you wanted to lead.
Yeah, kind of. I don't know. I've played both obs, and I like the Zato one. It's a little janky because like you need a lot of ice to feed into the wood chipper. Um, but I don't know. I enjoy it, and especially with Vertigo, which I know is one of your later questions, but I think Zato and Vertigo is a much clearer combo.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so moving along, how do you like your agenda suite?
I like it okay. Um, I am working on like VERTIGOB 2 for the online districts in a couple weeks, and very the agenda suite underwent a lot of changes. Um, I will say like I was pleasantly surprised. I think by Sacrifice Zone expansion. Um, it it doesn't really the fact that it's public doesn't change a lot of board states. You know, like a lot of the times when I install Advanced, once you install Advanced a card, the runner knows it's an agenda either way. Um, and the amount of money you can get from SCE is just incredible. Um, I am gonna switch. SDS is weird in this deck.
Hmm.
Um, because like one of the things that Zato Grid allows you to do is rig shoot. You can just kind of eat programs sometimes. Because if you like Zato Stavka, you just eat a program and it's not interactable.
Hmm.
So STS plays really well with that. But Zato also asks you to just kind of put a bunch of in the runs on the server. So I don't know. It was a weird tension that I'm not quite. I'm testing Basalt Spire instead of STS, but yeah, Azief is always good in Ob. You will probably never play Ob without Azief, and the Sacrifice Zone expansion was a standout, I think.
Yeah, so it definitely the SDSs definitely make sense in the Zato list. I do like the fact that even if there is that tension with the end of the runs, you do also have the ability to, if the Stavka is before the end of the run, let them get through the Stavka and then pitch the Stavka to kill the breaker that they would need to get into the server. So it's kind of like an end the run,
Yeah, like it
but I can
definitely
also see.
it has some tricks and like, but I think those tricks are good enough that you can afford to run Basalt, which is generally a more flexible card. But
Mhm.
again, it's a testing thing. I'm not 100% sure on. Oh, hold on, that's my phone. Sorry. But so yeah, Agenda Suite was okay, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's. I mean, if the Sacrifice Zone expansion did, having also played Ob in the districts, I can tell you how much fun it was to score an above the law against a Muslahat deck that didn't have any resources. I think I definitely would have preferred the Sacrifice Zone expansion there.
Yeah,
I don't. Yeah, I don't know that it would have changed the outcome of that game at all.
yeah, and like Above the Law is a weird kind of swingy card because like sometimes it's game deciding that you get this Above the Law score, and sometimes
Hmm.
it just doesn't matter. So it's a really weird. Like the VERTIGOB 2 does have an Above the Law, but that's kind of beside the point.
Hmm. Yeah. All right. So I'm not sure I've even seen a copy of Vertigo played since Vantage Point released, at least until I played against this deck. Checking NRDB only shows one notable appearance this district season in a PD Unleash combo deck. What made you decide to test it in OB, and how did it perform?
So so the okay, so I mean, we were in a call just kind of joking around about like an eternal deck with Vertigo. That would be really really bad. But something I enjoy trying to find underutilized cards and making them do something. Um so going into districts is kind of a compromise for myself where it's like, yeah, I'll play Ob, which is kind of the boring value deck. Um and but I will play Vertigo, and that'll make it okay, you know. Um, and I mentioned this earlier, but the theory is that with a Zato grid and with Event Horizons, you have these like uninteractable abilities to end the runs and just force the runner to spend some amount of clicks, no matter how good their breakers are, unless they have a Hush or Airblades. They have to spend the clicks to get through the server. And theoretically, if you can get a Vertigo there, you have to tax now one less click, because if they run less click, Vertigo stops them. And Ob gives you the ability to put that where you want it when you want it, right? It's that idea of agency we were talking about. Because one of the problems with Vertigo is you have to draw it and install it for it to do anything, but Ob shortcuts that. So that was the train of thought behind it. In terms of how well it performed, it was pretty funny. Like it's funny. A lot of games I've played with this deck, I'll get like a Vertigo, Event Horizon, Gear Check, Zato, Mitra, Hollow Man server, and I'll be like, "Come fight me, runner," and the runner will just go run my centrals a bunch. So, like against you when we played, I did put the Vertigo on R&D, and I've done that a couple times, in like testing and stuff, just to like. So I don't know. That's not the intended goal. The effect is okay, especially when you're not like paying for it so blatantly. But overall, I was happy with how it performed. Like it's definitely, at the very least, it's like a weird build around for my brain to enjoy, and that's worth a lot. And when it's good, it's good. Like there have been games where I get it on the remote server, and it gives me like an absurd level of safety because I can just kind of count the clicks and know I'm safe.
As opposed, and then there are times like our game in round four, which I mean, like, granted, that was definitely a case of I just didn't read the cards, but it it definitely pulled its weight there, and it created this interesting situation where it's like I either try to contest the remote or I try to contest R&D, and both options are terrible.
Yeah, because now you have one less click to set up for that R&D run, you know. So
Hmm.
yeah,
And it just so happened to be that on the last turn of the game, I played a scrounge to get back one of my Trojans. I'm pretty sure it was the Hush, and maybe it would have been better if the Hush had gone on the Vertigo, but it, for some reason, either it couldn't or I just didn't realize that
Well,
line
I think
was
there was
going
an
to be
event
such a
horizon
huge
behind the
problem.
Vertigo, if I remember right.
That makes sense.
So, and that's one of
Yeah.
the things about this deck too, is it's like, because Vertigo is very weak to Hush, and it's very weak to dying ice destruction. But it's one of those where it's like, oh no, they've trashed my Vertigo, and then I just have like an envelopment or something behind it. So it's like I'm happy if they spend tools on this ice because it's a cheap one cost ice, you know. So
Yeah. Another thing that makes sense. If they're dealing with the Vertigo, they're not dealing with the event horizon.
yeah,
If they're dealing with the event horizon, surprise! Vertigo says you can't steal anything because you decided to run last click on the last turn of the game.
yep.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad at least to hear that there's another version of this deck in the pipeline. That VERTIGOB is something that we will continue to see more of going forward.
Yeah, at least until I graduate college and have brain power. Because for now, it's just like, I know this works. I know how I want this deck to work. It's easy to tinker with, you know?
Yeah. So that being said, I couldn't help but notice that you're not running measured response in this deck. Are you even from Colorado? What made you decide to ditch measured response for Myoshu?
So, two things. One, I was a victim of testing in JNet Casuals. And in JNet Casuals, this deck had so much money. And I was like, well, I can afford a Mewtwo. And then in Districts, I played against slightly better opponents who were trying slightly harder, and I did not have Mewtwo money. So live and learn. But the other thing is that, like, if you are going to play Measured Response, you want Basalt Spires. Because the ability to, like, if you have a Basalt scored, you can bounce a Measured Response at the end of the runner's turn to get it back to your hand, Measured Response, and then bounce it back to your hand again. So it turns a Measured Response in Archives into two Measured Responses, right? So, like, if you're going to be playing Measured Responses, you almost always want to support them with Basalt Spire. And since I was on SDS, the drone deployments, I was looking at this deck from a different direction. Like, it's definitely, anytime you see a Wayland deck that's not on Measured Response, it's kind of worth asking, like, what if I put Basalts and Measured Responses in the deck instead? But yeah, that was my thought process going into it.
And again, now that I'm looking at this list and talking with you about the different intricacies, I can see that it's definitely going for more of that rig shooter approach, just by virtue of how well the SDSs and the Zados work with the Stavkas that you want to be running in an Ob deck anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, like, it's definitely, I mean, all these cards were released in the same set. You know, these are the Ob cards, and they do work together. They're quite good. So,
Quick point of information: SDS drone deployment was released in Downfall.
okay, yeah, but, like, Zato and Stavka were Ob cards, and
Yes, this is true.
SDS
This
is an Earth Station card.
Yeah, it definitely is. All right, so let's talk about influence for a moment. NSG delivered onto us this perfectly fine and statistically normal card called Let Them Dream, which you seem to have cut a copy of in favor of a Boomy 1.0. Given that you knew that I was going to be on Arasana for the tournament, why do you hate me, and was the Boomy worth it?
So, the Boomy was not worth it, actually. I had played a lot of Lifeline's run jamming deck before rotation, and that deck had a lot of ability to put a Boomy out at instant speed, like mid-run, which could be devastating. And this deck just doesn't quite have the 4 costers to pull that off consistently. Because
which
if
is
you
astonishing because Event Horizon's there.
yes, but there's a weird timing thing I think I remember where if you in the run with Event Horizon and tutor a boomy, it's not rezzed during the run, if I remember correctly. So it's, I mean, I should double check that ruling, but so the boomy was there truly. I was just afraid of Botulus. I was more afraid of the Anarchs than of your Shaper. Um, but it just, I don't know.
No, yeah.
Boomy was never where I needed it when I needed it there. And I needed a one cost card. I mentioned in the write off, I think, that it was Paywall for a long time. I was testing a one of Paywall. Would have
Mhm.
much rather had that Paywall.
Yeah.
To talk about Let Them Dream, though, I have such mixed feelings on this card in this deck. Like, obviously, like Let Them Dream is very, very strong, and I'm just not gonna say that it's not or anything. But you do, it's an awkward play pattern in Ob because, like, you score it and you put an SDS on the bottom of your deck, so it's safe from the runner. And then you extract something and shuffle your deck, and you just kind of undo the Let Them Dream score. So,
Mhm.
like, it's mostly in this deck for defensive purposes, um, at which it's very, very strong. But it is, I don't know, I think if Let Them Dream is bad in any Corp deck, it's bad in Ob.
I will say that I did definitely notice that tension between between scoring a Let Them Dream and bottoming an agenda, and the fact that Ob does shuffle itself that much. I That being said, I think there might be something to say for when you build the clown car remote with Ob, if you can let them dream and a hollow man cook in that remote for a turn, which obviously that's asking a lot on the grounds that, runners definitely can just get into servers when you least expect them to, especially if you're me. But if you're able to pull that off, the Hollow Man does let you score the Let Them Dream with a click available, so you can just tutor an agenda to HQ and then dump it into the Clown Car remote click 3.
Yeah, and that play pattern is very strong. And I shout out Cephalopod Wizards Ob deck in my write up, and they shout out this play pattern. Um, so like that is very good, and that is something you can do. It's just not something I found I was able to do as much as I expected during the tournament.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a much more aggressive line of play on the grounds that you're, having you're getting a Let Them Dream and a Hollow Man into a remote. You're scoring the Let Them Dream, and you're immediately replacing the Let Them Dream with a card that definitely feels like a Tranquility Home Grid line a bit more, maybe,
Yeah,
but or at the very least something that wasn't necessarily the play style you were trying to go for.
yeah.
So, so would you say that the Let Them Dreams are those going to be there in VERTIGOB version 2?
They're currently not. Um, I might put them back because right now I'm spending influence on a Hagen, and I feel like that has to be wrong. But they're not
A
right now.
Hagen?
Yeah, baby, fuck your AI breakers. It's not good. I'm probably gonna change it. Um,
Okay. Okay, I wish you could see the face that I'm making right now.
I wish you could see the face when I was laying in bed like midnight last night, just kind of petting my cat and like half my mind making this ob deck. And I wish you could see the face I made this morning when I woke up and looked at it and went, "Why is there a Hagen?" So, um, so all this to say, like I'm not sold on it yet, but I'm currently testing it without Let Them Dream,
Mhm,
and I haven't missed it yet. So
mhm. I mean, fair enough. I know that I remember someone at the just before the top cut of districts took like this informal poll of how many people were playing Let Them Dream in their corp deck, and like half the room raised their hands.
at least half.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, the discussion around Let Them Dream is far more complicated than I really want to get into right now. But it is
Really
definitely
understandable.
like it's definitely a strong card, and it definitely is a. I mean, it's doing something to affect the way that runners have to play and to balance the runner's power level. And I think it's too early at this point to say for sure, but
Mhm.
we'll see.
Indeed, we shall. So, at some point recently, I made a list of cards that punished the runner for trashing corp cards, especially ice. And somehow, I completely missed a certain upgrade named Yakov Erikovich Avdakov. We're just going to call him Yakov from here on out because I am unlikely to be able to say that full name more than once. How much work did he put in for you during districts, and would you consider him to be an overlooked gem?
So Yakov is my fucking boy. I love Yakov.
Clearly, you haven't read the fiction for him.
Oh no, he's a monster. I hate that guy, but he is my little baby. You have to understand that both things are true.
Okay, yep. This makes. Well, I'm not going to say this makes sense, but we can
We can move on.
these two contradictory things can be true at the same time.
Yes. So Yakov is such a weird card because I know you were playing like aggressive trend setting PD was kind of your screw the runner for trashing my shit deck.
I have put aggressive trend setting in entirely too many decks.
And I feel like most of the decks with aggressive trend setting don't want Yakov. Like, I will say Yakov is miles and miles and miles better in OB than in any other list. Because, you can. If you extract something in Yakov's server, now you get, 8 credits instead of the 6 net, right? If you res a Mavirus in Yakov's server to get, a Regolith or something, you only paid 1 for that Mavirus, effectively, right? And then obviously with Zato, and that's kind of the engine of this deck, where it's instead of having Tranquility, I have Zato and Yakov. And it's weaker because it relies on the runner interacting largely. And it is not as infinite as Trank, but it's good. I really like it. It has been nothing but good to me. So,
I mean, again, it's suiting the play style that you're looking for. So, it's the kind of thing that is making me want to try out something like this. I will say the fact that you're expending the 2 slots on the Yakov and the 2 on the Zato when you also already have 17 ice. I can see that you've had to do some trimming in other parts of the deck that I would need to tinker with to find a balance with that would feel good for me.
yeah. And,
So,
I talk about this in the write-up, too, but I think 17 is a lot of ice. And, I think it's the number I'd kind of seen in a lot of other Zato decks. But, I had so many games where I just was holding a handful of ice. So, I'm gonna try 16, and you can definitely try 1 Yakov. He's not the most essential part of this deck. It's kind of a luxury card. And it's 2 cost, which makes it much easier to tutor out than, Zato. So you can definitely cut down to 1 Yakov, but it's just another thing that gives me a lot of comfort in my deck, where it's I may not look like I have a lot of credits, but if the runner runs this server, I will start generating credits, and just that it gives me a lot of, sometimes unearned, but a lot of confidence.
a lot of agency of how to deal with the runner running the server and how you're unable to get that traction into the game. Using the fact that the runner decided to make the run in your favor as much as possible.
Yeah. And it's also nice because, sometimes, and this will... One of the weird things about Ob is that when you run, they get to res ice, and then the res ice becomes Obtrix, right?
Hmm.
So there is some merit against Ob to running less, um, which can, for the Ob player, make scoring an Oziev or playing Extract or resing a Stavka awkward because you want the value, right?
Hmm.
And Yakov is a good target. You just kind of res him, and then you score an Oziev. And Yakov pays for himself, and you can get a one coster. Which this deck is lacking one costers. But you can't get Vertigo, so think about it.
You can get Vertigo, and you can get Malapert Data Vault, which, if you've already scored an agenda, is probably going to be less exciting.
Fun fact,
But it's
actually,
there.
it works with Aziev because you have to. The trashing is a cost to score Aziev. So, like, if you scored an Oziev and trashed a Yakov, the Malapert would arrive in that server, and then you would score the Oziev.
Okay, that's actually pretty solid.
Yeah, so if you see Tuno's Red Room Ob or any of the Red Room Obs since then, they kind of operate on
Mhm.
that same principle, where if you score an Oziev, you can get the Red Room down, and the Red Room gets a counter immediately from the Oziev.
And that makes a lot of sense as to why people are putting Red Room into Ob decks. Ob really seems like the kind of ID that just rewards having a knowledge of all these really weird timing interactions.
Yes. It was one of the funny things I realized going into this tournament that I was playing Ob and Arisana. Two of the runners that reward weird timing interactions, reward you for memorizing your deck list, reward you for knowing a bunch of cards. Like, I don't know, they're different, obviously, but they're similar in a lot of ways, and I thought it was funny.
Yeah, and especially when you're complaining about how much time school is taking up, and then you uh, just put together these complicated and brain power draining decks, uh, and still make the top cut with them. Well, I should point out, also running the tournament and judging.
Yeah, I finished the day on Sunday, and my brain absolutely turned off. Like, I'm still in the process of rebooting it. It was a very, very long day.
Yeah. Hmm. But a fun one.
Very fun day. Would do it
All right.
again.
Yes. So now that we've really gone over like the card choices that were made into going into this deck, let's take a look at the future. Starting with anyone who wants to pick up this deck as is and try it. What advice do you have for anyone who wants to try this deck?
I mean, first off, do not pick up this deck as is. It is because I am in school and busy. There are a lot of refinements left in this deck. I mentioned some of them in the write up, so like feel free to just read the possible changes, make those changes. In terms of like
Mhm.
advice for the playstyle, like I mentioned earlier, this deck I had a tendency playing this deck to over index on the remote. Because like I would assume that the runner's game plan would be to marshal all of their resources and crack my remote. Therefore, I needed one more ice on the remote. Um, in practice, like usually, most runners, when they see 5 or 6 cards in the root of a server and a couple ice, they ignore that remote entirely and they start going for centrals. So, like, be very mindful of where you're placing your ice, and especially where you're placing your meaningful ice. Because, like, Kesselroyd's not going to stop anyone late game. Fly Swatter, Descent. Like, these are Zato fodder. They're not real ice. That
Mhm.
I love those ice. You know what I mean? So, like,
Right.
you just be very mindful of, like, where you're putting Envelopment, where are you putting Winchester. You can put an Event Horizon on the remote server. Like, against a Seb, you can put an Event Horizon on HQ, and you can snuff a transfer, and that's very, very strong. So just kind of being aware of that, being aware of your ice placement, and then just being mindful of your centrals. This is kind of an ob tip in general, more than this deck specifically. But if you don't win by a certain point, then R&D becomes like 90% agendas. And at that point, the game gets very, very hard for you. So even though this is kind of a slower, less aggressive deck, you still have to keep a pace. Otherwise, you will just eat your deck.
That speaking as someone who also picked up Ob for the first time recently, I can confirm that Centrals become extremely weak and agenda heavy as the game goes on.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, so just be mindful of that. Like, and then like I was talking about, I forget which write up it was, because there have been so many oblists. But like, you can. It's kind of like learning how to swim in a weird way, where it's like someone can explain to you how to swim, and then you'll get in the water and not know how to swim. Um, it Having reps on ob does reward you in a tournament setting, because some of the lines and like the ob chains are at that point so ingrained that you don't have to think very hard about them. You just kind of know what your tutors are and when you should or shouldn't trigger ob. So
no, it's fine. Just do what I do and get like one game of practice in before the tournament, and then go 2-1 with the corp deck because you're still learning it, but it's also ob, so you just kind of run them over with a boat.
yeah, no, AUCO
Don't
is
do
the other
that.
deck
Do
that
not do that.
no. I mean, ob is
Well,
certainly a deck that can sometimes just win you games with the idea ability.
mhm.
But and I know your next question is about the weaknesses of the deck, so I won't spoil it too much. But like, ob has been around long enough that there are people who know how to play against ob. So you at higher levels, at the highest level, like I did the game I dropped with this deck was the top cut game. And my opponent has played a lot of ob, right? So
Mhm. Yeah, we can just segue into that because we've also kind of been discussing it like as we've been talking about this,
yeah,
that especially with like the weaknesses of R&D and centrals in general as you get agenda flood in the late game. And
yeah. So I've been thinking about this question actually, and like I don't know that I have like ob has a lot of weaknesses. They're just not obvious. Um, like you can't let an ob keep a spin on the board for too long. Like when ob res a spin, you should go kill the spin immediately. Because if you keep it on the board, then it essentially gives ob the ability to trigger their ID with cards in archives, right? So like go
Mhm.
kill spins. It's worth killing regoliths and anthills and stuff. It's worth first round I beat ob with Arizona, and I think I pinholed both archives out of the or both anthills out of the remote. Just because it does slow them down. Ob can go very, very fast, so anything you can do in the early turns to slow them down winds up paying dividends. And that's true against this deck too. Like, there does come up. One of the nice things about Ob is it gives you a feeling of inevitability. Like, if both of you do nothing for 5 turns, Ob's gonna feel so good. So just, like, be willing to play actively, especially while you don't have programs. Like, if you don't have a program installed, face check everything. What's the word? Like, Astafka's not going to hurt you if you don't have a program. You know what I mean? So,
And Event Horizon's first sub is just doesn't have text.
yeah, exactly. Like, a lot of what's scary about Ob. Like, I remember one of the things. I remember this about the Scrobs list from before rotation very, very potently. But, like, anytime that deck installed an ice, it could just be white space. Or it could be Astafka, you know? And it's that unknown that gives Ob a lot of its power. Um, so, and like, truly, Ob is a deck where if you want to know how to beat it, it's worth playing Ob. Because once you've played it, you start to find some of the weaknesses and, like, things runners do that annoy you as an Ob player, and then you can just do them to Ob players. So,
I will say on the subject of Anthill, I was actually listening to Neon Static's most recent episode today about when to run, And I think it was a Sangren who made the point, but it could have been any of them because this is all I haven't listened to enough Neon Static yet. That when you go for an anthill, the the line of thought is usually along the lines of, "Oh, they've already gotten half the value off of it. There's no point in killing it." No, kill it. The back half of the value is the important value because it's the free sure gamble and a card.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, in Ob, that may not be as much of a thing because it is definitely something that can just be fetched and rezzed for free.
Very
But,
rarely.
well, yes. Event Horizon definitely makes it more plausible. But if they do that, then they've already and the anthill fires once. They've already gotten a free sure gamble and a card. You don't want them to get a second one. Have I been saying sure gamble this whole time because it's really hedge fund?
I know what you mean. And like, but the point too, more than that, is that like in Ob, when they trash Anthill, it becomes a Regolith or it becomes a Hollow Man.
Mm-hmm.
But if you trash it, it does not. And that's a lot of what the value is in like trashing these assets against Ob specifically.
Mm-hmm. Because if they unload the regolith, this was something that either you or Solemn Storm told me, and I can't remember. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Solemn Storm. That if you unload a regolith with Ob, you basically just have infinite money. Like you're gonna have all the money that you need for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
One thing to be aware of with Ob is you can keep a hand with an Ice and a Mavirus, and then just turn the Mavirus into a Regolith, and that's also very good.
yeah, that the Mavirus's ability to search out twos at instant speed while purging virus counters is extremely fun
Very, very fun.
for the corp. All right, so where do you see VERTIGOB going in the current metagame?
Nowhere? Like, I don't know. It's very much my deck. You know,
Huh?
it's hard to look at this and say that it's better than Red Room Ob or better than, like, a Measured Response Ob. I don't think it's worse, and if it's worse, it's not that much worse. But, like, I'm playing this because I think Vertigo is funny, and saying Vertigo makes me laugh.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't expect this deck to, like, take over the meta or, like, oh, watch out of your next districts, everyone's gonna have a Vertigo, you know? Like, it's a very niche kind of corner pocket strat. So I suspect there will be some weirdos out there like me who just enjoy playing weird cards who will like this deck, or people looking for a surprise or just a weird thing. Like, I don't know, I kind of see this as a kind of a one of the lowest tier decks out of the highest tier ID, if that makes sense. So
So basically, like the sort of things that I like to do.
yeah, it's like the worst Ob deck, so it's still better than a lot of decks, but
Mm-hmm. But even if like nobody is picking it up, is it still something that like you think has value given the threats that runners are presenting in the metagame?
yeah, no, because like one of the thing that ultimately, other than like the agency and the control, is that like most corps right now have to have a plan to deal with Tungsten Tailor Buzzsaw Doomrig, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's various ways to deal with that, but Tungsten Tailor doesn't give you any more clicks, you know? So, like, that was part of my thought going into this, is that, like, I don't care what programs you install, I'm going to just throw ice into the gutter until you run out of clicks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, like, I think that will continue to have merit. Or, like, I think that will continue to be a possible answer to this threat that runners are presenting. And, like, time will tell if it's how good the answer is. But I love this deck. I think it's very funny and very fun. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it is very important to have the answer to the Buzzsaw Tungsten Tailor Doom rig. And I think this is definitely a more interesting way of dealing with it than my way of dealing with it in some of my other decks, which was just, what if all of my code gates had more than 4 strength?
Just as a knowledge seeker, lol.
I mean, yeah, no, that's basically what I've been doing. Knowledge Seeker. I don't even remember what ridiculous code gate I was on
A
in my Nebula
teeny? Were you
list.
playing a teeny Nebula?
No, I wasn't playing it. So Atini and Knowledge Seeker are both in my RH list that only exists because I don't like playing mini games. But I also have had a Nebula list that I took to. Um, it was the APAC Showdown,
Oh
and
yeah.
I and I was playing it, and I decided, you know what, these end pots are just kind of atrocious right now. I'm just going to cut them from the deck. The only code gates that deck was running were 2 Fly Swatters, because obviously, and 3 Messna Chestvos, because I was on a flagship, not on a business as usual Vladislavsk City Grid list.
Yeah.
So the Messna Chestvos felt fine as just kind of a, you will run into this and lose 3 credits, and I don't care if you break both of the subroutines. You might not even be able to after you've lost the 3 credits. Deal with it.
Yeah.
And actually went up on other ice like free to pays or free to plays as a result, just because I knew that the strength on them was going to be so taxing.
Yeah. No, FTP is a great card. But I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the things too, one of the nice Ob is gives a lot of flexibility. So I never felt like I was over indexing on this threat because I didn't play a single Tungsten Tailor. Like I didn't see one installed all day, but
Mm-hmm.
I still had all the ob value to deal with other board states. You know, so
Right. Mm-hmm. All right. I think it's time to address the elephant in the room.
sure.
We've seen a number of cards get banned to try to reduce Op's power level, and I've seen some chatter recently about whether or not it's time to sink the boat. How do you feel about Ob's continued place in the standard format?
So this is a very complicated question. I mean, I think ob is. I'm of the okay. So I felt the same way about Ayuko, and I still feel the same way about Ayuko. Where like Ayuko is a very skill intensive deck, and it is beatable by a very skill intensive runner. So it makes for really good high level games of Netrunner between players who both know the deck very well. At very low levels, like both of those decks are decks where the first time you see it, you die, you explode. It's not close, you know. Like
I believe my first game against Egg, I was playing against you, and I lost on turn 2.
yep, you ran through an anemone and then touched a Fuji and died,
Yeah, that was funny.
which was pretty funny, and it's a very classic egg experience.
Uh-huh.
But so it's a weird thing to try to address because it's like, and I haven't looked at Maker's Eye or stats or anything, but like, I know every time I see an ob game on like the finals of a showdown or a districts or something, like CBI last year was an ob versus Sable finals. It was a great game of Netrunner. Like it was so exciting, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's worth a lot. And I was thinking about this after you sent the question, and like, ob is one of the best users of one-ofs. Like, ob is much better, excuse me, at having like one-of tech pieces in their deck because they don't have to draw them. And same with like spending influence on a tech piece. And this gives ob a really unique identity in the format. Um, so I don't know. I guess long and the short of it, like I would understand an ob ban. I would be sad. I'd be very sad, but I would understand it and I would get over it. But I'm not in a huge hurry to ban it. Um, just because I guess because selfishly for me, I think ob makes a lot of good Netrunner, But like I said, I understand the desire to ban it, and I would understand if it happened.
So you mentioned the Maker's Eye and the tournament data. Unfortunately, for your not having looked that up, I already had the tab open on my phone, and it looks like at present, at least in tournaments, OB is about 10% of the metagame, and it has a 69% win rate.
That's
And
crazy.
also, yeah, and I also look at the matchup spread, and it's I don't want to say that it's extremely polarizing because it's really not. Like, as far as runners are concerned, the boogeyman right now is Seb, against whom Ob has a 60% win rate. It doesn't appear to have any losing matchups. The closest that it gets is a coin flip against Muslahat, which is
That makes sense to me.
and also a coin flip against Az. And even in those cases, we're looking at somewhere between 10 and 20 matches played in either of those matchups. We watched one of them on Sunday. So,
Yeah, and like I don't know, I will continue to be an Ob apologist because I think Ob apologist is a tongue twister. But
mhm,
we're like a month into a new format, you know, like
mhm,
when Elevation dropped, everyone was saying these things, the same things about Nebula and about Ayuko, and they're not bad decks now, but they're better. You know, people got better at
mhm.
playing against them. They got a lot more explored. So I don't know. I would, and again, like I am not interested in trying to predict ban lists or play standard balance team. Like I trust them, and I just want to play the game. But
Mhm.
I would, if I was, I would give it more time. It's but and like I said at the beginning, I would understand an odd ban. Like I think that's such a fair move, but I just like the boat. I think it's funny.
It is very funny to be asked what deck you're on and say that you're on a boat. Like,
I'm on a boat.
I'm on a boat. Yeah. So, okay. Well, that was a lot about one deck, but it was an excellent deck that did very well. And so, yeah, Jay, thank you for your time. I hope that all of you out there on the internet who have listened to this were able to take something away, maybe get a better sense of not just this deck, but also just like Ob in general, and who knows, maybe hearing more about how to play against Ob means that it doesn't get banned because people are able to play better against it, and it's less of a problem.
And that's the real reason I agreed to the interview in the first place. It's a joke. I love you.
Makes sense to me.
It's all
All right,
propaganda.
well, uh, or Obaganda.
Propaganda. Oof.
We'll fix the portmanteau in post. Anyway, that's it for us. Uh,
Propaganda.
thank you once again, everyone who listened. I will see who else I can dragoon into talking about decks. There are a couple that I do want to get to. You mentioned the Ryan Burke, our district champion, had a couple of fun ones, and there's some others that I have my eye on. So
Yep.
yeah, that's it. Take care. Have a good night or day or whatever time it is when you're listening to this, and all goes well. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.